welcome to Politics. For those of you tuning in for the first time, hello there. Helene, my wonderful co-host, could you remind us what this podcast is all about?
Well, Adrienne, I'm glad you asked. This is...
just not scripted or forced at all.
Nope. I'm glad you asked. This podcast is a Harry Potter reread podcast that focuses on the politics, specifically in the wizarding world.
Oh, well, and, we have to introduce ourselves, right? So I'm Adri. I am one of your hosts, a recovering English major and a person just deeply cackling with the glee that comes with karma.
Karma is a wonderful, wonderful bitch. Well, on that note, I'm Helene, your co-host, producer, and someone with a very exciting announcement. I know I teased this on the last episode, but your girl got her dream job. I have been working towards this goal for a very, very, very long time. I've been actively applying for and interviewing for positions for over a year to in hopes of leaving my current job. Not that I don't love my coworkers and things like that. There were just some things that needed to change in my life. But I've actually been working towards the goal of getting this particular job for much longer than that. I've been working towards this goal since college, basically. The job I got is at a digital marketing agency whose clients are mainly film and television companies, production companies based out of LA in the entertainment industry. So I get to be a social media coordinator for marketing campaigns for movies and TV. I'm just so excited. The agency that I am going to be working with did the campaigns for Fantastic Beasts: Crimes of Grindelwald, as well as the Harry Potter Wizards Unite mobile game. And I am hoping, fingers crossed, that I will maybe get to work on the third Fantastic Beasts film for their social campaigns. So it's just truly, truly my dream job, and I'm so happy and excited.
I am equally excited about this, even though it's not my dream. It's not a new job for me, but it's just such a, how can I say this? It's such a fulfilling and hopeful and happy moment when you see your friends getting getting the dreams that they, reaching for the dreams that they had and making them happen. And it fills me with hope that maybe life isn't so shitty after all.
Yes. I honestly never thought something like this would happen to me. It's still unreal and will continue to feel unreal probably until I'm in the thick of it. But you've been here the whole time with my journey, and you've heard everything that I've been going through personally. So I'm sure that it's got to have some sort of impact to see that hard work that you witnessed actually pay off. It's crazy.
Oh, for sure. And there's, again, it's about I'm always happy about everyone's success, right? I'm just that person, and I know it sounds hokey and dumb, but I really want to celebrate especially women, working and getting what they deserve and more, because I am of the mindset that we women don't get enough credit for our contributions to the world.
Totally. Listeners, this is just a reminder that if you want something truly and you work hard for it, nothing is impossible. Just like Ginny said in the last chapter, anything's possible if you've got enough nerve. So you gotta just go for what you want. You just gotta go for what you want. And I mean, don't take it lightly when I say that I worked my ass off for this.
Well, you faced a lot of Helene, let's not sugarcoat it, right? You faced a lot of obstacles and overcame them brilliantly.
Thank you. It's not like, this got handed to me. I definitely put the work in, and if you put the work in too, you can get your dream job. I mean, I did it. Anyone could do it if I did it.
You know, it's it's interesting because March last year, so like 1 year ago and some change, when the pandemic was just getting started, I got, disinvited from my job for the first time ever.
I like
It's
that
the highest,
terminology.
yeah, disinvited, uninvited from
Yeah.
being in my job due to something that is not relevant to performance or anything like that. Um, and I was crushed. And I know you remember this. Like, I was crushed because I was like, this is the highest
I
position I've
do.
ever had. It was my like dream in a way of like, it was like an ambitious goal that I had set for myself. And I felt like I failed. And that's a hard thing to feel, right? And 1 year later, almost to the day, March of this year, I was negotiating with a a customer, customer who was going, as a person in my new job with a lot of responsibilities. I led the negotiations with the federal government for a contract. Never done that before. Never negotiated with the federal government. Never like no one had ever let me take the role that I always wanted to take, as in like have the power to lead negotiations, right? Like my bosses are awesome and they were like, I trust you. You came up with this like algorithm, you read this book and you taught yourself how to do this. Like, just go forward. And we negotiated to the point where not only could they not take away any money from our quote, they actually had to increase our quote because they noticed that they had made a mistake on their end in their own estimates. And I showed them why they were wrong in their estimates. And
So you kicked ass, basically.
so, like, yeah, but like a whole year later. And so I know that, like, when we were facing obstacles last year, you and I, you and your, jobs, because you switched not just jobs but also like departments almost,
Industries.
right? Industries. So I wanted to stay
Yeah.
within like what I was doing. So I still felt like a failure because I mean, when you get quote unquote disinvited or fired, you're like, well, that's it. Like that's it for my career. I thought my career was over because I'm a drama queen, obviously. But
Hell no, it wasn't. Well, no, I
but
mean, I feel
but
like a
in the
lot of
moment
people
it
would
feels
have
like
that
that.
fear, and you didn't let that happen. Yeah, you didn't let that happen because
I mean,
you fought for yourself.
I grieved, but I also did not let that. I did not take this lying down, I shall say. So, you know what? I'm here for this. Things are turning around, Helene.
Yes. And now that we've talked about personal things for 10 minutes, let's talk about Harry Potter.
What? But Harry Potter is also very personal to me. Let's be real.
Yes. And I mean, I would not have gotten this dream job without the experience that I got from MuggleNet. So that's a very Harry Potter related topic. Being the marketing
Yes.
manager for MuggleNet for the last 2 years definitely played a part in me getting this position. And also, so PSA, go volunteer with MuggleNet. It's a great thing to have on your resume if you want to work in the entertainment industry, if you want to work in social media, if you want to work in online publications. It's so easy to just volunteer with MuggleNet, get that real time experience, and it's a huge platform. So,
Yes, fantastic.
MuggleNet.com. Yeah, go check it out. I know we have at least one volunteer position open in our marketing department on my team, and come join us. It's so fun. That was my MuggleNet ad, but now
Okay, so that being set aside, what we're going to be really talking about on this episode of the show Archaeopolitics is chapter 30, which is titled very succinctly Grawp. of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix.
This is the one where the entire school rebels against Umbridge and carries on the Weasley twins' legacy. Hagrid brings Harry and Hermione into the forest to meet, the title of the chapter, Grawp, during the Quidditch match, and Ron's newfound confidence in Quidditch helps Gryffindor win the House Cup. Go him.
What a legend. But also, okay, Ron. Speaking of exciting things that happened in the chapter today, we have some exciting things in store for you on this episode and over on our Patreon. We have monthly rewards that are mailed every 3 months, like a little subscription box / envelope, and also bonus segments for our episodes and much more. We've been thinking about how to make it better. So if you have any thoughts, any things you'd like to see on our Patreon, please reach out to us and we'll see what we can do. But in order to do that, you would have to head over and become a part of our community at patreon.com/ociopolitics.
Yes, and for today's Patreon-only bonus segment, we're going to be talking about the role of blood in the series, specifically the concept of how the series can open itself to claims of someone having good or bad blood, in addition to the concept of Muggle-borns, witches, and wizards being called mudbloods, which we know is not a great term for that. But in the meantime,
Terrible term.
no, well, I'm sure we'll get into that in the Patreon segment
Yes.
for sure. But in the meantime, it's time for our Potter Watch segment where we're going to discuss some of the latest news in the United States. All right,
so what are we talking about today, Helene?
Right, so not a lot of news this week. The main one is I have been kind of just turning on CNN every day in the afternoon to get my little catch up on the Derek Chauvin George Floyd murder trial that's happening in Minneapolis right now. So I'm just going to relay some of the highlights from this week's testimony. I think we were on day 8 or so of witness testimony of the trial as of Wednesday, I almost said December. Wednesday, April 7th, which also, by the way, today's my mom's birthday. Happy birthday, Mom.
Happy birthday, Helene's mom.
I don't know if she's listening, but I love you. Anyway, so the trial. So the big things that happened in the trial this week were earlier in the week, they had an array of eyewitness testimony from people who were at the crime scene, who witnessed the murder. And almost all of them got extremely emotional on the stand while recounting their story. Most of them were brought to tears. It was very, very difficult to listen to, and I imagine even more difficult for them to have witnessed. These people are there were a ton of people that witnessed this crime. There were just like crowds of people around while Derek Chauvin knelt on George Floyd's neck for over 9 minutes. And these people are going to have to carry that trauma with them for the rest of their life. Their witness testimonies, the analysts, after watching the testimonies on CNN, made comments that the testimonies were both extremely factual while also being extremely emotional, which is like the perfect combination for jury persuasion. And honestly, just it's probably the best it could have gone in terms of getting the outcome that we want. Then even more so, the next day, police chief, one second, let me make sure I'm saying his name right. So police chief of Minneapolis, Medaria Arradondo, police chief Arradondo gave his testimony, I believe it was Monday or Tuesday. And that one was really, really interesting for me to watch. This police chief has come out in public before the trial and already has declared Derek Chauvin a murderer before this even happened. So we already knew where the police chief stood on this. But to have the chief of police, his boss, go on the stand and tell him, I made the rules, I made the policies, I made the trainings, and I can confidently say with 100% of my being that he did not follow the training. He did not do the policies. This is not what I trained my police force to do, and I don't condone anything he did. And that's really, really powerful. And honestly, it seems like the trial is basically a slam dunk. I really don't. It's open and closed. There really isn't anything that the defense has been able to bring up so far that has made anyone even remotely doubt that Derek Chauvin did murder this man in cold blood. So it's just, I will just be. I mean, I know that police officers have, you know, been let off for things similar to this before, and I'm just really hopeful at this point in the trial that that's not going to happen. I do think that he is going to be convicted of murder at the end of this.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not saying like, oh, of course he's going to get convicted because I mean, let's be real. People are
Anything's
corrupt and
possible.
shady things happen all the time.
Yeah.
I would just hope that we are better than what we have been in the past as a society, you know?
Yeah.
So, and that he gets
Yeah.
to pay for what
Exactly.
he did. Ugh, well,
Yeah. I'm very hopeful that he will.
I don't know how to segue out of that sad note, but let's go back to our chapter and talk about what each of our politics were when we reflected on the chapter, what we thought was going on within it. So, if you don't mind, Helene, I can go first. But it
Yeah,
looks
definitely.
like,
Go
to
ahead.
me, it looks like we have very similar ones. Although, as per usual, it's two sides of it's the same thing, but from two different vantage points.
Yeah, two sides of the same coin, right?
Yeah, so mine is more inward facing. I chose the politics of colonial mindset and mentality. So, like the colonial mindset and mentality is the internalized attitude of a colonized group. So, and that is kind of how you feel about your own self, your culture, your people, as a result of being colonized and indoctrinated by another another group that retains power over you, right? So this is correspondent to that belief, the belief that the cultural values of the colonizer are inherently superior to the colonized people. So, like, I can briefly speak about this personally, obviously, because I grew up in a colonized island. And I grew up with the mentality that English was a superior language to Spanish, even though, Spanish was our first colonized language because we were colonized by Spain in the
Mm.
1500s. Woo! Fun stuff. And that my worth as a person and the worth of my culture was inherently inferior to that of people in the mainland or the US. So that's something really hard to dismantle within yourself. It's really hard, especially when you are questioned at every stage of your life, especially when I moved to the United States and faced a different side of colonialism and rejection for my background. And yeah, it's just, I saw that all throughout this chapter. Like, even Ron's dejection and then sudden, like, burst of confidence is kind of like him almost like deconstructing his own colonial mindset of like, I'm a Weasley, I'm Ron Weasley, I'm not good enough, because the Slytherins have convinced him of that with the Weasley is our king. We see Hagrid obviously dealing with that, but I just also saw that in Ron, and I was like, wait.
I don't know.
So
I
my
gotta say,
politics
I
all
think a
about
big
the
reason that
life. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I gotta say that the reason I think that Ron did so much better, in this chapter with Quidditch, and Hermione actually brings this up. I think it is because Fred and George aren't there anymore.
Well, but that's also part of the colonized mindset, right? Like
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
has been told his entire life a certain story about himself that he believes fully, and it is in the absence of that force that he
Hmm.
discovers something within himself.
Yeah.
So what's your politic?
Yeah. So this chapter was hard for me because I don't know if the listeners really understand this, but this is my first time reading through the series and of course this book in particular with the lens of analyzing it from the
Mhm.
vantage point of politics. So I've always read this book for pleasure, obviously. Read it multiple times, and I've never noticed the things that I noticed when I read the chapter this time, and it
Yeah.
made me
It
sad.
happens.
It made me sad because it kind of it shattered an idealistic view that I had of a character that I love. In this case, it is Hagrid. I'm gonna say some pretty, maybe inflammatory things about Hagrid in this episode.
This is a
And
safe space.
yeah, I mean, I know that we have a lot of Hagrid lovers. Hagrid's a great character. I do love him. I know that everything he does with love in his heart and good intentions. I think he messed up in this episode or in this chapter. I think that he didn't do right by the people that he cares about. So, with that in mind,
Yeah.
um, my
I
politic
mean, we can talk
is
about that a little bit further later, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. So my politic is forced migration, or also known as forced displacement. I went through a lot of different terms trying to figure out what to talk about, how to talk about this.
Okay, so I like that. I like the concept that you brought, but did you come across the term diaspora by any chance in any of your searches?
No, I did not. I did kind of go through a lot of different terms, trying to figure out the best way to explain kind of what I wanted this politic to be because, like, I started with refugee because that kind of was the first one that came to mind. But then, a refugee is someone who willingly leaves their country or their home of origin
Hmm.
looking for a better life. And in this chapter, that wasn't the case. This person left their home, but not of their own choice.
Volition. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this was the best one that I could come up with was there is such a thing as forced migration. If you don't mind, do you want to tell me what diaspora is first, or I can
Yes.
define?
So yeah. So a diaspora comes to us from the dispersion of the Jewish people beyond Israel, and is now used to talk about the dispersion of any people from their original homeland. So migration is one thing, right? But diaspora refers to the sentiments and the feelings and the culture shifts that come from having to leave your homeland or being forced to leave your homeland for economic reasons, safety reasons, or because you're forced to leave your homeland.
So that's the same as forced migration and displacement, as
Yeah.
in terms of like definition is basically the same. So, what I found
Mhm.
was forced displacement is an involuntary or coerced movement of a person or people away from their home or home region. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the UNHCR as they are known, defines forced displacement as a result of persecution, conflict, generalized violence or human rights violations. And so yeah, I mean being forced to leave someone's home for all these different reasons. And in this case, obviously I'm talking about Grawp. Hagrid made Grawp come with him and leave his giant camp. And basically his only excuse for this was that Grawp was being bullied and he didn't think he was safe there. So that falls under kind of the umbrella of violence, generalized violence, or fear of safety, or like lack of safety. And so,
I know that Hagrid says it was because he feared for Grop's safety, but how do we know that Hagrid understands giant customs enough to
Yeah.
know if he
Yeah,
is,
so yeah, I agree. I mean, that's my main problem here in the chapter. Not my main problem,
yeah.
but a big problem in the chapter here is that Grawp, it's mentioned multiple times throughout the chapter that Grawp did not want to leave. He tried to
Mhm.
go back, he wanted to go home. Hagrid was like, "No, you have to come." And Hagrid didn't really have a good reason other than, they were bullying him, and they were being mean to him, and he didn't really have. So the thing is, there was no he has no idea if Grop's life was actually in danger. Yeah, Grop's life might have been in danger. Maybe at one point in the future, the Giants might have killed him. His mom was gone. His mom wasn't there to defend him anymore, if she ever did that in the first place. But he kind of, says that she didn't really care for him. And he was smaller, maybe he could have had his life be in danger, but he has no proof that the giants killed the smaller giants. He has no proof that Grawp would have actually have been in real danger if he stayed. And Grawp wanted to stay in his home. It was all he knew. It was his home. He wanted to be there. And so the only thing that's kind of keeping this in the more moral gray area is that Hagrid is his older brother, and he thought it would be better for him to be with family, which it like, is it kidnapping, and can it be kidnapping if it's your brother, if it's your family? It's just, I mean, there are arguments I think to be made, but I had a really really icky feeling about it. And I know that Hagrid is a good person, and I know he loves his brother, and I know he was just trying to do it to, you know, help. But not only does he put Grop's life in danger and his own life in danger, but he also puts the trio's life in danger, um, with this entire thing. Not only just in danger from Grawp. Grawp could kill them once they're, left to take care of him when Hagrid is gone. But also, all the creatures that, and the centaurs and the things in the forest that could kill them, just trying to go and help him. So I know that Hagrid's trying to do this good thing, but he endangers the lives of so many people he cares about in the process. And I feel for Grawp. I never thought I would say that, because I've never really liked the whole Grawp storyline. When I read these books, I kind of always was like, I remember reading this book before this podcast and just kind of like thinking this chapter was like stupid, and I just wanted to get back to the main story, and I didn't really care, and I was like, whatever, just it's Grawp. Who cares about Grawp? But I really felt for Grawp in this chapter. He was forced to leave his home, and he probably misses it, and he doesn't know the language, he doesn't know the customs, he's just completely out of his element, and he didn't have a
He
choice in it.
he's also contained. He
Yeah.
is literally roped down, like he's
Yeah.
bound.
It's not great. So I mean, I have a lot of love for Hagrid. Not in this chapter though.
Well, as you were talking, I got teary-eyed, and I'm trying not to cry.
Yeah. I
I
didn't
think
expect
what
this episode to make me emotional, or this chapter to make me emotional. Like, I texted you after I finished my notes,
yeah.
and I was like, "This made me really emotional," and I didn't. It's the Grawp chapter, like I didn't expect this.
This is listeners, this is what happens. Like, you never know what's going to get at you,
Right,
honestly.
right.
And this is the second instance in this book specifically where we get to hear more about giant customs through the lens of the wizarding world, through the lens of wizards. And the person telling us this is Hagrid, who is half giant. So him being half giant lends some credibility to what he is saying in the surface. But if you dig deep down, you're like, wait a minute, how do you know that's true?
Yeah.
And how do you know that's not your wizard sensibility stalking? Because you did not grow up in a giant environment. You grew up with wizards. And first of all, and second of all, wizards were the ones who displaced giants in the first place and ran them to the mountains and put them in precarious situations in which like they were forced to fight with each other and kind of create this society that now wizards are like, see, I told you they were brutes. I told you they were beneath us. But like, dude, you created this
Yeah.
situation and now you're punishing them for acting the best they can in a situation you created.
Yeah. It's
Colonialism.
real problematic.
Mic drop.
Super problematic. Yeah.
I'm going to stop real quick before we continue and say that this is why I'm really upset when people are like, we'll just let Puerto Rico determine if they want to be a state or not. And I'm like, listen, motherfuckers, since 1898, when you invaded us and took us over, you've been telling us that we are not good enough, that we are lucky to have you as the colonizer, that, oh, but maybe you shouldn't become a state because you're fine just as you are. Oh, maybe you shouldn't be independent because look at how Cuba's doing. Do you want to be just like Cuba? So, like, we've been for over 100 years. My island, my people have been bombarded with like this narrative, and now you want us to decide if we want to be a state or not, and then you want to act like, well, see, they don't want to be a state; they want to stay colonized. Well, motherfuckers, you created the whole system to keep us there. It's like having an abusive boyfriend being like, do you want to marry me? Or do you want to break up? Or you just want to stay boyfriend, girlfriend? Guess what? Like, if that person doesn't have a support system, which Puerto Rico doesn't have a support system outside of the United States, they're going to be like, let's stay as we are. Because like, at least like the devil we know is better than like either option.
That's a really good metaphor. Yeah.
Thank you. I've been thinking about it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was like it was a great metaphor for sure.
So yeah, so like I just want listeners to be cognizant of that fact when they hear about like, well, Puerto Rico has it. Like they seem to not be sure about if they want to be a state or not, and everyone's like, but why wouldn't they want to be a state? Well, I don't know, indoctrination, bitches. Like the fuck.
And this chapter has a lot of themes that, you know, are very
It
close
just
to
hit all the
home for you.
points,
So,
Helene. Like it just hit all the buttons in
yeah.
me. Okay,
Yeah.
continue.
Well, let's just go into the deep dive. So,
Yes.
I'll go first with my quoter moment. The quote that I pulled from the chapter in terms of forced migration was, this is Hagrid speaking here. Well, no, he didn't want to come, said Hagrid, sounding desperate, but I had to bring him, Hermione. I had to. And then later in the chapter, a page later, he says, they were all bullying him, Hermione, because he's so small, said Hagrid. Small, said Hermione. Small? Hermione, I couldn't leave him, said Hagrid, tears now trickling down his bruised face onto his beard. See, he's my brother.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it speaks for itself. These are, it's just, you know, it's all the things that I said happened. You know, Grawp didn't want to come, but Hagrid said he had to bring him because they were bullying him, and he's small, and he's with his brother, and blah blah blah. And yeah, I mean, I get it, but also that was his home. That's all he knew, and you forcibly took him from his home against his will.
Yeah. Well, for the colonial mindset, the moment that I latched on to the most, other than like the displacement, which you so beautifully covered, was the fact that he kept insisting that Grawp learn English. Because obviously that touches me on a very personal level, being that English is my second language after all. And that spoke to me a lot about Hagrid's internalized, colonialized mindset. Because instead of trying to meet Grawp where he is, right, and trying to learn giant customs in order to connect with his half brother, because if Hagrid is half giant, does that mean that he's not interested in his own cut and like half his own customs, right? And he views Grawp being able to learn English as something that must be done in order to civilize him, quote unquote, is talking speaking a lot about how Hagrid views wizards as being better than giants or
Yeah.
being, superior
Yeah.
beings,
Definitely.
and also ignores
Yeah.
the fact that wizards have been the ones that drove giants away to mountains and into situations where they are displaced, disconnected, and can turn against one another more readily. And when you disconnect a group of people from the rest of society and leave them to fend on their own, don't then become surprised that violence can erupt, because you put them when you put
Yeah.
people in
I mean,
precarious situations. Like, what are you?
yeah, there's a definitely a good amount of internalized, I guess racism would be the best term
Well,
for it.
internalized
With
colonial
Hagrid.
mindset, yeah.
Yeah. And oh yeah, and he wants to I feel like there's a motivation for him to like assimilate Grawp into Wizarding culture because he thinks that's what's going to give him the best life now that he has taken him away from the places where his own customs are the only places where his own customs are accepted.
That is
It's
so
like, okay,
presumptuous.
I moved you, over, I took you away from the giant camp, I brought you into the wizarding territory. Now the only way that you're going to get by is if you take on wizarding customs and learn their language, and I want you to have a good life. And so, like, there's, he wants Grawp to be happy where he is now, even though it wasn't his choice to be there in the first place. It's like, oh, okay, well, you're here, so now in order for you to succeed here, you have to do all of this stuff, and I want you to succeed. I want you to be okay. It's very weird. It's crunchy, I guess. It's
Well,
like
you know
layered.
what? Like, I just saw it more as like in like learning English and learning these wizard customs are going to be a civilizing force on him, and therefore he's going to be better for it, rather than trying to understand where Grawp was coming from, because he's already looking down at
Yeah.
pure, like like at giants. He's already looking down on them, like people who are pure giants, and he's probably thinking of himself, Hagrid, as more wizard than giant.
Hmm.
I don't know, man. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Well, because
sometimes,
Hagrid blends in. Hagrid has assimilated for the most part, and
I mean, he
so
towers over
he
people,
and
but
his
not
life.
in, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean it depends on who you ask, but a good portion of wizards do recognize him as one of their own, and he wants Grawp to have the life he has, so or better if he
But did
can,
he
which is not going to
ask
happen.
Grop?
No, he didn't. That's the thing. Yeah, I mean that's what is the worst part of all of this. Is he didn't take what Grawp wanted into account at all. It's possible if Grawp wanted this, maybe, but it's not like he would be able to actually tell him. I don't know.
Again,
As
colonizer mindset. People like, to me, this scenario shows us what I've known for a long time and what has been very hurtful to me, that sometimes even people with good intentions and sometimes even people from your own community can be the enforcers of colonialism in insidious
yeah,
ways.
yeah. Well, in terms of characters, we both put Hagrid, and I'm guessing for the same
for the
reasons.
for all these reasons
Um,
we've already covered.
yeah, so we don't really need to go into that because it's Hagrid. He's the character that uh, embodies both of our politics in this chapter.
But how did you see your politic work throughout the book itself?
Yeah, so it was difficult because this politic is pretty darn specific to this very specific situation. There isn't a lot of this type of thing happening throughout the book or even throughout the series. The only thing I could think of that came in even close was like there could be a case to be made for house elves. Like
Hmm.
if we knew, like if we knew, I guess maybe even goblins. Um if we knew that, like if they had like a home country or like a place where house elves or
How? Yeah, like,
goblins.
do you think like Dementors maybe also?
Yeah, I mean, they've basically been forced to work for the service of wizards, which is slightly different. Like, it's possible maybe they did like flee bad conditions in their own, you know, if there is like a country full of house elves or a country full of goblins or a country full of dementors or whatever it is, maybe they did come to the wizarding world for a better life, in which case it wouldn't be forced migration, or they would be refugees and all of these different,
Well,
nuances.
it could
But
also, I mean, if it's, you know what I think about a lot though, Helene, is the idea of like, so South in South America, there's a big movement of migration from conditions that are less than ideal, but a lot of those conditions have been the result of United States foreign policy and meddling. So in a
yeah,
way, it is forced migration because the conditions into under which people are living in these countries are a direct result of our meddling or our country's meddling
yeah,
in their affairs.
yeah. I mean, there's a case to be made for that for sure. Yeah, I mean, we don't have any like specific evidence that there are other populations in the series or in this book specifically, that have like been forced to migrate or are displaced for some reason or another. So yeah, for me, there it's just kind of like all speculation. But what about for colonial mindset? I know you already listed a good amount of examples throughout this chapter, and I'm sure there are a ton more in the book. So
Well,
what did you
just
think of?
basically, I mean, the series, right, is all about this fight against someone who believes in the idea of wizard supremacy, Voldemort, and blood purity. But I think what we ought to also think about is the small ways in which characters who mean well, like Hagrid and other beloved characters, actually uphold the idea of wizard supremacy by thinking of other magical humanoids as creatures, quote unquote, that are separate from
Yeah,
themselves. Like the centaurs and the goblins and the house elves and all these humanoids that are that have complex systems of communication and giants, right? That have gifts that are different from the gifts that wizards have. They have customs that are different from wizard customs. There's a lot of characters in the series, even again beloved characters, who do not necessarily treat all these magical beings with the same respect that they treat their fellow witches and wizards, and in that way they become complicit in wizard supremacy.
yeah. And I gotta say, I mean, I I was not surprised by Hermione's reaction to Hagrid's news in this chapter. I I expected her maybe to be a little bit more like outraged and maybe even like disapproving of what he did, but she definitely is the most vocally disapproving. I mean, for her track record of, wanting house elves to have rights and stuff like that, it, she like it ends the chapter with her being like, I just cannot believe him. I truly cannot believe him. I cannot believe that he did this. And I guess that's the best we're gonna get. But I assumed that she would be appalled at the fact that he basically kidnapped this like young giant and forced him into an environment that he did not want or need or know.
Well, I get this is the first time we're hearing about this, and she is too in the
Right.
book. So she also might be just incredibly shocked and surprised by, like, she's like, my God, like I have to worry about Umbridge and all these other things, and now this,
Exams?
like, ugh,
Yeah.
you know.
Right.
So
Well,
yeah. Whew. Let's let's keep this conversation going by talking about what we hate in this chapter, which is our dementor. What's your dementor for this chapter, Helene?
yeah, I mean, I've touched on it basically already, but just in general, Hagrid's actions and choices in this chapter are my Dementor. I know, I know that his heart is always in a good place, and he loves Grawp, and he wanted to have what he thought was best for him. But in the end, he made Grawp leave his home, and he put himself and the trio in a really dangerous and unpredictable situation. And I just don't think any of them are really equipped to handle this situation properly. And he's really setting people up for failure. And I just, I wanted him to do better. I really did. What about
Yeah.
you? What about your Dementor?
Well, my Dementor was in your vein of in the vein of your Dementor. It is Hagrid placing so much responsibility at the trio's feet, like they have nothing else going on, you know? And that's especially notable because we see that a grown ass man who is half giant has been beaten black and blue by Grawp, but we're supposed to think,
Yeah.
who's gonna like take really good care of this person I kidnapped? 3 15-year-olds.
Yeah, I mean, a person of Hagrid's size and strength is being beaten to a pulp on basically like a daily basis by um, this new edition. And what does he think that like 3 15-year-olds cancels out one man, like one fully grown half giant? Like, I don't think that they compare.
Not at all. But yeah, that's my Dementor for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, so what's your chocolate? What's giving you life in this chapter?
Yeah, I mean, the first half of the chapter, or I guess like the first like third of the chapter is a really like nice, uplifting, like funny part. So, I definitely clung on to that for this. And my chocolate is the entire school protesting against Umbridge, and um the what I do have some issues with it though, like with Peeves locking Mrs. Norris in suits of armor, like she's a cat, like don't abuse my kitties. And then also, I can't believe I forgot this, but like it mentions how Peeves drops a bag full of tarantulas in the Great Hall during breakfast. I would have like I would not have handled that well. Nope. Tarantulas. Like, no, that was not cool. Everything in that first part of the chapter was great, except for those two things. I had like ethical objections to.
Well, I'm going to say something you're not going to like, but I am going to say it anyway. This is another way in which you and one Ronald Weasley are alike.
Yes, I do share Ron's hatred and fear of spiders, and tarantulas are like one of my biggest. Like, nope, nope. Mm-mm.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Well, my chocolate, unsurprisingly, is McGonagall uh, telling Peeves out of the side of her mouth as he's trying to unscrew the chandelier, it unscrews the other way.
Yeah, that is one of the most iconic McGonagall things that she's ever done. It is pretty great. I love that part. That was
She's
great.
such a legend.
Yeah.
I feel like Order of the Phoenix. I mean, I've loved McGonagall forever. Like, this is, we all know this.
Right.
But Order of the Phoenix is where you're like, McGonagall, yes, step up, girl. Like,
Right.
yes.
Yep. Yeah, she's
Uh,
she's truly the badass to beat in Order of the Phoenix.
well, now that we've uplifted our souls with this
Yes.
chocolate, let's talk about last week because we asked our listeners a question last week, and it was, what career path would you choose for Harry and why? What did we get? We get responses?
We did. Yeah, we got a couple. So, Galaxy on Instagram said, I always thought that he would be a great teacher or even a great judge. Harry has an innate sense of justice. Think of him taking Snape's side when he saw his dad bullying him. Instead of taking his dad's side, he was just and saw what was wrong in that interaction. Fair. I don't think he should be an Auror, maybe for a little on after the war, but not for long.
I
I,
agree.
I really
I
liked
agree.
this judge thing. Yeah, I loved this judge idea. Like, it's true. Harry always has had a very strong sense of right and wrong, and he hasn't always taken the easy path, and I love it.
Yes. That's a perfect example as to his sense of fairness and justice.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he has a tiny little bit of Hufflepuff in him. You know, just a little bit
Mm.
of the fairness. Fairness is a big Hufflepuff trait.
You
We
know,
see that with Cedric a
as you
lot.
know, I am a Gryffindor sun, a Hufflepuff rising, and I don't know what moon.
Slytherin
We'll
man.
see. I don't think I'm a Slytherin.
No, no, you're Ravenclaw with the creativeness. Yeah, this the Ravenclaw moon.
Is the moon the emotion side? I think so. I don't
You
know.
know more
I don't
about
know
this than I do.
astrology. I'm no Trelawney, you know?
Right. Although this astrology and the stars and stuff, that's more frenzy. But
I'm no divination teacher, shall we say.
exactly. Yes, yeah. Um anyways, next answer was from podcast 9 3/4 on Instagram. They said DADA teacher, which was a popular answer in general.
Yeah.
Stay at home dad, which is one that you mentioned, I think, last time. And then my personal favorite from this list that they sent was owner of Florian Fortescue's ice cream parlor. I could
I
totally see Harry being an
Yes,
ice cream parlor owner. I could totally see him doing that.
I am fully behind Team Harry being a stay-at-home dad cuz we
Yeah.
need more representation of that.
Hmm.
Also, he's like rich as fuck, you know? Just do it.
Yeah, I mean, he should just buy Florian Fortescue's, honestly, and just get all, because, like, in Prisoner of Azkaban, when he's staying at the Leaky Cauldron after he ran away from the Dursleys, doesn't he go to Florian Fortescue's, like, every single day?
Every day. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I mean, I
um,
stand. I understand.
yeah, same. I think he would really, truly enjoy that job. And then one of our patrons, Katya said, I think he'd end up playing Quidditch. You can't use Expelliarmus for everything as an Auror, and I think he'd have too much trauma around fighting dark wizards, and he really enjoys Quidditch because he's very good at it.
Okay,
And
let's
I
be
thought about
real.
this too.
When I saw that answer on our super secret patron only Facebook group, I cackled all day long
Because you
at
can't use
the
Expelliarmus for everything. Yeah.
at that phrase. Like, you
Yeah.
can't use Expelliarmus for everything as an aura, and I was like, so true, girl. Like, so true.
Yeah, yeah. I thought about this too when I was like trying to decide how I would respond for Quidditch, and I believe like yes, it's a good answer because he absolutely loves Quidditch. He like it's something he's really passionate about. But his wife is a professional Quidditch player, and I don't know if they would want to have two professional Quidditch players in the family. Probably wouldn't want to like take that away, like take that like special thing away from Ginny either.
You know
Um,
what though? Like, Harry's already the boy who lived and
yeah.
vanquished Voldemort. He has earned his retirement as a stay-at-home dad and let Ginny do her thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could see him like maybe teaching Quidditch at Hogwarts, like taking over for Madame Hooch. Like that would be fun. Or like
Super
coaching
cute.
coaching a like little league Quidditch team.
I was just thinking that. Oh my god, why are we the same person?
This would be so
Stay-at-home
cute.
dad who's like the coach of a little league Quidditch team. Perfection.
That would be so cute. I would be here for that. For sure.
I need the fanfic for this, you guys.
Yes. And then our last answer is from Naomi.rkr on Instagram. They said, I think after loads of therapy, Harry would make either a great social worker, making sure people got the support they need, helping others to discover their talents and abilities, or he would work with animals. He's pretty good with Buckbeak and other animals he encounters. He could care for orphaned baby animals and find good homes for them. And he probably works part-time / stays at home until all the kids are at school. So part-time dad and either a social worker or animal taker carer of her.
Oh, like a foster parent for like animals.
Yeah.
Honestly, all I want in life is to be rich enough to get like a ranch type house in Texas, not so far away from a city. Thank you very much, because I still like cities, but
Yeah.
like have enough land so that I could just like foster and adopt a ton of chihuahuas and have like a chihuahua
Chihuahua
like
farm.
army. Yeah, like a chihuahua army or a chihuahua squad just running around.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like something you would definitely do. That sounds like you.
It sounds delightful because it is delightful.
Yes. Yes. Well, on top of all those answers, we did get a couple of people like, that said, he's a defense against dark arts teacher.
Mhm,
A
mhm.
lot. I mean, that was a very popular opinion. I agree. He would be a great defense against dark arts teacher. But I liked these kind of out of the box answers. They made me smile.
All of them made me smile. All of them are way better than, the narrative. so
Yeah. Wizard
so
cop.
you know what? So these are all my new headcanons. I want a fanfic for each one. Is what I want.
Yeah, that would be pretty great.
So this week we have a question for you, our dear listeners. And it's unsurprisingly very tied to the exact same thing we've been discussing ad nauseum the entire episode deep dive. And it is, do you think that Hagrid did the right thing bringing Grawp back with him from the giant camp?
Please let us know. You can write to us at aciopolitics@gmail.com. You can send us a message on any of our social media outlets. We're at aciopolitics all across the board. I'll be posting the podcast question of the week on all of our social medias. Usually it's on the Sunday after the episode is released. And so just keep an eye on that. And if you respond to our question, we will read your answer on next week's podcast. So listen for that.
Yeah, we love hearing from you. These answers are so insightful and funny and witty and just y'all are the best.
Honestly, I
I
love the answers we get every week.
just my heart always grows like the Grinch's heart, you know?
Yeah. Yes, same.
Well,
Although mine's
speaking
pretty
of
big
the
already.
Grinch, speaking of the Grinch, which is like a bit of media, right?
Right?
Let's stretch and calm down, power down, cool down with the media we've been consuming. Helene, tell us all about the media you've been consuming.
Yeah, so I've been taking some of your suggestions. You'll be happy to know. I finished Breaking Bad, and I finished that over the weekend. And honestly, final thoughts, because I know that you guys have just been here throughout my whole Breaking Bad journey. Final thoughts are that it is probably one of the most well written and by far one of the best acted series in television. I will not say it's one of my favorite shows ever. It was good, but I am not in the least bit surprised that it won so many freaking awards. The writing was from like a writer's standpoint, like that, it was just masterful writing. If you really are able to like appreciate the nuances of like television writing, it was very, very masterfully written, and the acting was just incredible. So if you're wondering if you should watch it, I say yeah, go ahead. It is definitely like a work of art. But when I finished that, I went and I watched the docuseries on the Nixium cult on HBO Max called The Vow. I finished that in less than 24 hours. Uh, that was extremely, extremely interesting. It's about like the Nixium cult and their illegal sex trafficking ring. We've totally talked about it a few times on this podcast before, but if you're into like true crime and cults and stuff like that, I definitely recommend it. And then when I finished that, because I finished it so quickly, I moved on to another recommendation of yours. I started Grace and Frankie.
Yay!
And yes, I did. I watched that. I'm probably about somewhere between 5 to 10 episodes in. I don't remember which one. But I will say Frankie is like me. I love Frankie. Frankie's amazing. She's great.
Um So, fun story. I am Grace. So, guess what, you
Ah!
guys?
We got Grace and Frankie on the podcast. Yeah, Frankie is my spirit animal. She's everything I want to be. She's amazing. She's hilarious. I love her so much. Lily Tomlin is just delightful.
Yeah, Grace is a delightful character. I wish I was it's like someone I wish I was like, but if I'm being very, very honest with myself, which we have to be at some point in our lives, I am definitely much more aligned with Grace, temperament and character-wise. Although I will say Brianna is,
Nah, she's pretty great too. She's really. I mean, I'm not. I don't have huge love for all the kids. I kind of not loving their storyline so far, but they're growing on me,
Brianna's
and yeah, they're
Brianna's
growing. Yeah,
storyline is chef's kiss. Don't worry about it.
yeah, they're growing on me, and Brianna's definitely my favorite so far. I will say, in terms of Grace, she's not my favorite of the two, but she is extremely like she she's rigid and then but also very very open-minded, and she listens to Frankie, and she takes criticism, and she grows, and she she just she's just really really she's a good friend and a good person, and I do see the greatness in Grace as well. I just don't
I
personally
just
relate to her as much.
No, I get it. I get it. Like sometimes we see ourselves and we don't like what we see, but sometimes we just have to accept it and say, well, this is me. This is who I am.
And if you have to be Jane Fonda, there are worse things to be.
But honestly, like in all honesty, you know, as you keep watching the series, you
Mhm.
will see not only am I a lot like Grace in terms of like, oh, this is definitely who I'm gonna be when I'm old and cranky, but like Brianna is who I am at this moment.
She's pretty great. She's pretty awesome.
Anyway, so do you already watch the episode with the Ryan Gosling chair?
Well, that's the first episode, I think. So yeah,
Yeah, so like
yeah.
that's where I got hooked. I was like, oh my god, this is hilarious. I can't
And
even.
if anybody in this house gets to sit on Ryan Gosling's face, it's me.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. I I'm so glad you've been, you're into your Grace and Frankie journey. I can't wait to
Yes.
see how it pans out. I am in a different journey, Helene,
Tell me about your
than
journey.
you. My journey includes a man named Dick Wolf. And if you are
It's just such a
familiar,
power name. Such a power name,
I
Dick
know,
Wolf.
I know. If you're familiar with the Law and Order multiverse, is what I'm going to start calling
The Law
it.
and Order verse. Yeah.
uh, yeah, the Law and Order multiverse, kind of like the Marvel multiverse.
Yeah.
You know that Dick Wolf is the executive producer and creator of these series. I am and have always been a hardcore Law and Order Special Victims Unit fan.
SVU. Love it.
I am not gonna lie. I know that cop shows are problematic. Yes, I do. Do I still watch them? Hell
Yeah.
yes.
But cop shows with Ice-T, can they be problematic? I mean, I love Ice-T.
Also, Marixa Hargitay, Olivia Benson,
Amazing.
is a
Um,
fantastic character, and she carries the entire show. I'm sorry, I
amazing.
said it.
I mean, Olivia Benson is the backbone of all Law and Order ever. Like,
SVU, yeah.
yeah.
So 10 years ago, we had the character of Elliot Stabler leave the SVU the SVU universe. And it was a very painful blow to all of us SVU fans because,
Yeah.
Benson and Stabler was like the OTP of cops, like I don't know how else to say it.
They were the dream team.
They're the dream team, like the chemistry on camera, chef's kiss. And lo and behold, Dick Wolf strikes again into my itty bitty heart and is like, I know, Adri. I know you miss Detective Stabler. Here's what I'm going to do I'm not going to bring him to SVU. No.
Be too easy.
That'll be too easy, too simple for you to watch a single show with Benson and Stabler. I am going to take, nay, rip a page out of Shonda Rhimes' handbook and say, I'm going to give you a new show with Elliot Stabler. And there's going to be crossovers between both shows. So you have to watch SVU first, and then Elliot Stabler's new show second to get the whole story.
Yes.
God damn it, he got me. The motherfucker got me.
Yes, Law and Order Organized Crime? Is that what it's called?
Yes. Organized crime. And Helene, you sent me a tweet earlier about organized crime filming in New York City. And there was a beautiful picture of quite a bubblicious butt.
Oh my gosh.
That is attached to one Elliot Stabler. And
Christopher Maloney.
Chris Maloney.
Yeah.
Chris Maloney, as he is known in the real world. And you're like, God damn it, Dick Wolf, this is why I have to watch 2 fucking shows.
If you were unaware, which I was until, around...
I was 2 years old.
Yeah, around like maybe 2 p.m. on this day of our Lord, April 7th, 2021. If you are unaware, Chris Maloney, aka Elliot Stabler, has one of the most beautiful butts in all of human history.
Yeah, and like, listen, guys, like, there's this tweet, it's going around, it's viral, and like every fucking single comment under it sent me I was just crying the entire afternoon laughing.
My favorite okay, I had to look up the word, because it was Law and Ardor instead of Law and Order, and I was like, what is Ardor? And it's like enthusiasm and love, I guess is what it means.
Yeah, like lust, like ardor, like passion.
Yeah, so it was Law and Ardor, and then colon...
Special thick Tim's unit.
So like THICC. I died. I died and went straight to heaven and then died again. It was literally the best.
So my second favorite of that, because that's my absolute favorite, and that's actually the original author of the tweet. Actually, that's his tweet too.
I thought you were gonna say that was actually the original name of the show and they
changed. So my second favorite tweet of that comment section, although I'm sure by now it's like overcome with even better comments,
probably.
It's mine is did not know middle-aged ass was on my personal menu, but here I am. That also just sent me. I was like, you know what? That's true. Like, Chris Maloney, he's no spring chicken, but that ass.
Oh, that ass is a spring chicken. Just that ass.
But also, like, it brings me back to like the before times, Picture
before
it.
COVID?
Picture it. October 2016, before Trump.
Before that guy.
Yeah. Twitter was just like jokes and people being horny for people, like it was just like, it brings me back to that moment of wholesomeness of we weren't in a death spiral, doom scroll every day. Brings hope to my heart.
It does. Thanks, Chris, for your beautiful butt and the hope it brings to all of us.
It's a symbol of hope, of change, and horniness.
Oh, goodness. On that note.
And with that perfect butt. And with that perfect butt, we're closing out the episode.
Yes.
You can join us next week to talk all about Chapter 31, titled OWLs of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix.
If you've enjoyed this conversation about butts and Hagrid and all the things that we covered in today's episode, please
thick Victims Unit.
Yes. If you enjoyed this episode of Special Victims Unit, take a second. Bum bum. Take a second, please, to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to this episode right now. It helps new listeners discover the podcast, and as you are well aware by now, it makes us very, very happy as your co-hosts.
Because we're codependent, and we haven't gone to enough therapy yet. But until then, politics managed. Support this show by going to patreon.com/Occhiopolitics. Our patrons keep this show going. You can find us online at Occhiopolitics.com, and we are at Occhiopolitics on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can email us your thoughts at info@Occhiopolitics.com. Leave us a voicemail at 915-996-1699. And you might just hear yourself on the podcast. Adriana Wilson is the founder and creative director of the podcast. Helene Karp is the producer and social media manager. Allison Pullman is the audio wizard and editor who makes us sound so good. Cover art and physical rewards are designed by Adriana Wilson. The views expressed by the hosts and guests are expressly their own and not representative of their employers or associates. Occhiopolitics is part of the MuggleNet family of podcasts.